What's going on, guys? It's the RPO podcast. I'm your humble host, Jerome Jones, and we are back live. We are super excited to be here today because we got some special guests today. But I'd like to introduce my all-time favorite guest, my man, Ray Roberts. How you doing today?
I'm good, Jerome. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. I'm glad to see you again because we had a little hiatus, and we'll get into that a little bit right after this. But I want to introduce my other two hosts today. They're first-time podcasters, our guys at Inside the Hatches Draft Analyst. We got Ben Swartz right here. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good. How you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. And we got Jacob Kaplan right there at the bottom. How you doing today, Jacob?
Living the dream every day, man.
That's great. That's great, man. And we got a special podcast today for you guys because, like I said, we was on a little hiatus last week. But if you haven't been following us on our social media accounts, we was at the Senior Bowl this weekend. So we're gonna do a little Senior Bowl recap. I know we did a little Senior Bowl recap last week, but we're gonna dive a little more deeper into it. So I wanted to bring the best guys to talk about the draft and the best guys that can do it. So I bring my two guys in here today to really talk about the draft today. So without further ado, we're gonna get right into it because the Senior Bowl was a great event. I was able to be down there. I was down there with my friends, my co-workers and friends, Juan, LaMarcus, Chris, and Jack. So we were all able to go down there. It was a great event. It was a little different because there were, some COVID restrictions and things like that. We were not able to go and, be close to the players, but we was able to be down there, look at them, evaluate them, and things like that. And it was a good event. So, like I said, we're gonna get right into this to get into the recap. And right now, we're gonna talk about the quarterback position. Now, this year was a little different, and it was honestly, I think it was a little disappointing on my end just because we had a couple of big names that were in there. We had, Kyle Trask that couldn't play. We had Mac Jones who got injured right in the last practices before the game. So those two guys wasn't able to play. So we had a couple of guys that, had to kind of step up. And I think the performance wasn't as good as we wanted to, but we're gonna jump right into it. I'm gonna let Ray start us off. What do you think about the QB position, and who stood out to you?
I think it was bad. There was nothing really great about it. I mean, Kellen Mond probably played the best. Obviously, he was the MVP, so that kind of makes sense. And I think of all the guys that we saw, he's the one guy who probably has some upside as an NFL player. I don't think he's going to be a long-term starter, but I think he can be a solid backup somewhere, maybe a situational starter. Of course, I am a Notre Dame fan also, so I like Ian Book. And Ian Book played fairly well. And I think, again, he's a guy who could have a career maybe as a backup, but I don't see him as a starting caliber quarterback either. So except for Jamie Newman looking horrible, that would probably be my whole evaluation of what happened, so.
What do you think about this, Jacob?
I think that we missed out on a great opportunity to see Kyle Trask. I feel like he was the one that had the most to prove this weekend. We've kind of seen his stock falling from a potential first rounder at the beginning of the season to kind of starting to slip a little bit. It's a shame we didn't get to see him. I do not know how to feel about Kellen Mond. I've been saying this for about 2 years now. I don't know if he's good. I don't know if he's bad. So we're just going to put him right in the middle and say, hey, let's take maybe a day 2, maybe day 3 pick on him, see if we can iron out the kinks, get some more consistency in him. I saw, and this was my thoughts going into the Senior Bowl, there's some solid backup options that were on display. Guys who you might not necessarily want on the field all the time, but there's some guys here that you want in your locker room. Ian Book's one of those guys that I think is one of those locker room character type of guys that some teams really gonna love. I believe Sam Ellinger is another one of those guys where you want him on your team in some way or another. But I wouldn't say there was really that much impressive stuff on display. There's no true Justin Herberts this year.
Yeah. Ben, your intake?
I think Mac Jones was a really interesting case at the Senior Bowl because a lot of the time he's been at Alabama this past year, everyone's been saying how a lot of his production and his numbers have come from the talent that he's been associated with. He's got Devonta Smith, he's got Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris, all these guys that are bona fide or looking to be bona fide NFL studs. So I think the fact that he was able to show in practice that he was making these tight passes, he was being accurate, he was able to throw the ball with decent velocity was definitely a good sign. And Jamie Newman, Ray said it, he was really disappointing. And it was interesting because coming into the Senior Bowl, I was really excited to see how he'd play after not playing at Georgia this year. But after a decent start on day one, he really kind of, fell off, and I was not too impressed with what I saw.
Yeah, definitely. And that was actually one of the things I was going to say. And as we talk, we got one of our first comments from Lawrence. He says, Mac Jones looked amazing from the way he controlled the huddle and always talks to the coaches. And it was definitely unfortunate that he got injured. We had our little post practice interview with him. He said that he tweaked it. He said he wasn't going to push it if he didn't have to. He was dressed a lot. Even the crowd was like, "We want Mac, we want Mac." So it's kind of funny, being from the Alabama area that he's, that's obviously would do that. But he said that he wasn't going to push it. The reports that he might play. He was suited up, so a lot of people thought he was going to play, and then unfortunately he wind up not playing at all, although being suited up as an emergency quarterback. But I want to kind of jump back to Jacob's point about Ian Book, Ray, because I know you're a Notre Dame fan. What do you think about Ian Book's performance out there? And to give you some stats of him, I have the stats right here. So he was 5 for 11 for 48 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions, and he had a sack. So, Ray, what do you think about his performance?
It was solid. I think it was about what I thought Ian Book is. Ian Book is a guy who's a nice athlete, who has solid, not arm strength, but solid arm talent. He can throw the ball from different platforms, but he's not an NFL starting caliber quarterback. He's not. So
yeah, he was also 4 for 18 on the ground as well, averaging 4.5 yards per rush. You think with the NFL that's kind of changing to a more running quarterback situation, Ben, do you think that's going to help him out a little bit with the the fact that he can run, or you think that he don't have enough arm talent to go to that next level?
No, I think that he's a nice athlete, but that's really all he is. I think like Jacob hit it right on the head. He's a locker room guy. He'll be in someone's locker room. He'll be on someone's team as a backup, but he's not a starter.
What do you think, Ben?
I mean, I completely agree. Even though he can run, you still have to have that arm talent. And if you look at guys in the NFL that are those running quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, they do still have the arm strength and the accuracy to back it up. And I don't think Book has enough of it to compete in the NFL.
Definitely. So, Jacob, Kellen Mond was the one that got the MVP of the game. Do you think that was more the fact that he was the best quarterback that could have been playing, or you think that he actually had a good game and he really made a case for himself?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think he definitely was, out of the guys that played, the best one that played. I don't think he lit the world on fire or anything like that, but he looked, to me, I thought he was, when you looked at the non-Mac Jones, there was there's levels to it, and I believe Kellen Mond was ahead of the other guys there. And to me, he proved that once again, and just looked like he was the only one that was, I don't want to say confident, but hey, this guy might have a lengthy NFL career because of his play, So I think he didn't light the world on fire, but hey, he didn't look bad, which is kind of Kellen Mond to me, Yeah,
definitely. And Lawrence said that he was the only quarterback that looked good. It was definitely a lot of sloppy play with the quarterback position, and it was definitely disappointing not to see two of the top guys, and a lot of people went down there for it. But things happen, injuries happen, things like that. Chris, who was down there with us, says Mond was definitely the best quarterback played on Saturday. I agree as well. All right, let's go to the running back position now. So there was a lot of big hype going around Najee Harris. He didn't play. I'm not even 100% sure why he didn't. I think he just opted out to play it. But we had some decent to good running back play. We had Michael Carter, we had Stevenson's, we had Herbert playing. Herbert was one of the guys that Ben actually talked about in his breakdowns and draft prospects. We also had Roundtree, Mitchell, Newman. So out of those guys and who played out there, Ben, who kind of stood out to you, and anybody kind of surprised you?
Yeah, one of the guys that definitely surprised me was Elijah Mitchell out of Ole Miss, because throughout this past season, a lot of people have seen him kind of as a downhill ball carrier with limited versatility and not a ton of elusiveness. But after watching him in the Senior Bowl and throughout the practice days, I think that might have just a bit of what the Ole Miss scheme is, because we did see a lot of good quickness, a lot of footwork, a lot of ability to defenders miss, and that was a really intriguing sign for a guy who hasn't showcased that much throughout college.
Definitely. What about you, Ray? What do you think about that?
I agree with what he said. I think Elijah Mitchell shows that he could be a contributor maybe at the next level. I wasn't that impressed either with the running backs. I think Michael Carter probably stood out over everybody else. I don't know what happened to Devontae Williams. He didn't play.
Devontae Williams. I guess he didn't play.
Yeah, the North Carolina running back. I know he was down there, but I didn't see him play at all. I didn't get to watch the whole game. I watched like 3/4 of it, but I didn't see him at all. The other guy I like Killer Herbert. I think he showed with the way he was blocking. I mean, I knew he was a solid runner and a solid pass catcher, but I think he stood out with his blocking. I think he's a nice back who actually looks like he's going to have a nice rounded game at the next level. So
definitely. And Jacob.
Looking at the running backs at the Senior Bowl now, I personally, and this is going to be for most of my points, I put a lot more stock into the practices that lead up to the game. I catch the game and all that, but the practices are what really are the bread and butter of this whole event to me. And someone that I think impressed me a good bit was Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, Stevenson was
shout out to the fullbacks there.
Yeah, and we just got a comment saying no love for Ben Mason unless other section was fullback. Ben Mason was actually one of the guys. Obviously, you guys already know if you have been tuning in with us. I'm a huge Michigan fan, so Ben Mason was definitely one of the guys that I was checking out. But he definitely showed out. I think he's one of those. He could be one of those utility fullbacks who's catching out of the backfield very well in practice. They didn't utilize him in the actual game as much as far as doing other things, as far as catching the pass out of the backfield and things like that. He was wedging some holes and for the running backs, and there was one play that he just totally annihilated one of the defensive ends. One of you guys have any say about Ben Mason during the whole process?
So I am very much happy that we have another good fullback coming into the league this year. I was a big fan of when Alec Engel was coming out of Wisconsin. So I still personally feel, maybe not every down, but I still believe that there is a place for fullbacks in the league today. I mean, look at a lot of successful teams. 49ers run a lot with Juszczyk. You've seen Sherman in Kansas City. So I feel there's still a value for a guy that can block linebackers and sometimes catch passes. So I'm all on the Ben Mason train there.
Right.
I like Ben Mason. I think he's a good solid fullback. I think that that he doesn't really show me enough as a pass catcher. Juszczyk is one of them weird guys that he can make plays out of the catching the ball too. So I don't see that in Mason. But I mean, I'm an older guy, so I like fullbacks myself. Can I say, like, Ramondre Stevenson? I didn't get to watch the practices. I didn't. And Ramondre Stevenson, who I like a lot, I thought really struggled in the game, and it surprised me a little bit.
Yeah. And Ben, what do you think?
I think similar to Ray, I see Ben Mason a lot more like a kind of James Devlin type fullback. He's He could be a real big bruiser. He's going to be that guy that's going to be able to pass protect and pick up yards in short yardage situations. But he's probably not that kind of guy that's going to be able to go on a 10-yard route and pick up first downs for you.
Definitely. And to get back to Ray's point, I think that I forgot what my point was for Ray. So let's just move along then. Lauren says that Ben Mason is equal to John Kuhn. I kind of like the Devlin comparison a little bit.
Yeah, I think John Kuhn is better than him, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I like Kuhn more.
he was that guy. He was.
Yeah, I like him more.
Yeah, especially when the crowd Kuhn.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to tight ends and wide receivers. I mean, when it comes to the offensive positions, this is the most glamorous, it's the most looked at. Most people remember these positions. So I'm gonna start with Jacob. What's one player that stood out to you, not named Amari Rodgers, because he was definitely the star out there? So name somebody else other than him, because I think we all kind of knew he was going to be the star out there. So
So I'm going to go with a guy that didn't actually play in the game, but when you watch the practices, he was by far the best receiver that was there. That was Western Michigan's Dwayne Eskridge. I've been high on this guy since they announced him for the Senior Bowl back in November. He is just so fast, so agile. He uses that well in his route running. You watched him down in Mobile, and he was just getting separation from DBs like that. Like, just so instantly. He plays bigger than his size. He is going to be an absolute problem in the league. And I would not be surprised if you see him going pretty early in day 2 now after a big week down in Mobile. But doesn't surprise me at all. I wrote about him before the Senior Bowl happened, and I'm glad to see it from a small school prospect.
Definitely. He was one of those guys that unfortunately we were not able to see him show off his skills down there. We went down there for the last day of practice, the Thursday night practice. He didn't play that one. Also, Say Sharot was another guy that didn't play as a wide receiver that was down there as well. But as Chris said, Ben Mason definitely showed off his passing skills in practices. So they were passing to him quite often actually in practice. So I thought that was very intriguing to see. And I was waiting for them to have some kind of fullback kind of package, maybe some goal line catch or something like that, but that didn't happen. But Ray, give me a wide receiver that impressed you.
I like Nico Collins, man. You know that, Jerome. I like him. I think he's a nice vertical type receiver. Mm-hmm. I like point of the attack, catch the ball, do some things in the passing game. He's a good blocker. I like Nico Collins a lot. I think out of the receivers I saw, I know Amari Rodgers was a star as far as, speed, quickness, but I like Nico Collins maybe more than anybody else that I saw.
Definitely. I believe Nico Collins didn't play in the game, at all. He's not on the stat sheet at all. So I did get to see him at the practice, though. He did look good. I would like to see him run in the 4.5s in this draft. I mean, we're not going to have a full combine, but I would like to see him run in the 4.5s at his pro day. If he's able to do something like that, I really think that he'll be a reliable wide receiver who got really good hands, can go up for the ball, strong and physical. If he can run really good, I think he'll be he reminds me of a Michael Pittman Jr. coming out. If that, I think that'd be a good comparison for him. So Ben, what do you think about that assessment? And give us your
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty accurate. He showed that he's got a lot of the tools to be successful at the next level. And I think if he does show that he has the speed, then a lot of teams are going to be really high on him. One guy that I was really impressed with, who, like Dwayne Eskridge, was on Jacob and my Senior Bowl watch list, was Cade Johnson out of South Dakota State. And he's another interesting guy who didn't play in the fall because his season was postponed until the spring. But I think he was really, really great in the one-on-one drills from the videos that I saw in practice. He was getting by guys, using his footwork to make guys miss. And he has, I think, a lot of the tools to be a really successful slot receiver. He's going to be really effective on those slant routes and out routes. But something I'm really interested in seeing, especially at his pro day, is what kind of vertical jumping he has, to see if he has the ability to be a threat on the outside besides a kind of running gun kind of guy.
Definitely. All right, so I'm gonna just name a couple of guys that stood out to me. Des Patrick was one of those guys. He had amazing game. I think he had six receptions for 90 yards. High point in the ball, catching the ball over DBs, smaller DBs. This comment right here says Tony. He didn't play in the game. He was at the practice. He did look good in the practice. We did get to talk to him as his press conference after the practice. But yes, Des Fitzpatrick was definitely I think was one of the better wide receivers that was out there. Another guy that didn't get a lot of catches, but I thought he looked really good. Frank Darby, I think from Arizona State or Arizona, I always forget.
Arizona State, yeah.
Arizona State. He was another one of those guys that can be very intriguing in those the early third to mid fourth. I think one of those guys that can really contribute on a team. So let's talk about some tight ends because we didn't get to any tight ends yet. Ray, what is a tight end or two that stood out to you?
I mean, I like Hunter Long from Boston College. Mm-hmm. I don't even know how much he played in the game. I just like him. I think he's a good blocker. I think he's a nice pass catcher. I like him a lot. I like Kenny Yeboah a little bit from Mississippi. Mm-hmm. I think he's a nice athletic H-back type guy. And the one sleeper I have is I like Trey McKinney from Georgia. I think that Georgia didn't use him enough. I think the kid has definite upside and really when he gets his feet on the ground in the NFL, I think he's going to be a nice little player for you.
All right, Jacob.
I agree with that. I mean, McKinney had like almost as many catches this week down in Mobile that he had in Georgia. And during the practices, everyone was like, "Wait a second, who is this guy?" He looked really good. I feel almost all the tight ends, at least the practices, look really good. I mean, I'm a fan of Yeboah from Ole Miss, right? Yeah.
Ole Miss.
As a bigger wide receiver. Bates had a good week. I think in general, there's a lot of really good like late day 2, early day 3 guys that are going to be solid contributors on teams. I don't think there was any like superstars down in Mobile this year, but there's definitely some contributors on this rosters.
All right, and Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to emphasize a player that Ray mentioned, Trey McKinney. He showed a lot of power in his blocking. He was able to finish off blocks really well, and that's going to be a plus for him in the NFL. And he did exhibit some speed, and like you said, Ray, Georgia didn't really throw him the ball that much, but I think he does definitely have some potential to run up the seam and make some plays for an NFL team. And then another guy that I thought was really interesting was Quentin Morris out of Bowling Green. Another powerful guy, another good guy blocking, but he's also shown that he's able to catch passes, and he's done that against some top competition too. I think during the 2019 season, he had a really good game against Notre Dame. So he's someone I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on moving forward.
Yeah, and Quentin Morris also showed that he can jump over people too. Inside the hashes was definitely we were able to grab a great photo of him leaping over a guy. So if you haven't seen that photo, check us out on InsideTheHashes.com or our Instagram page. You can find that picture. It's a great shot. So let's move along to the last position of the offensive lineman. The last position of the offense, which is the offensive lineman. Sorry, guys. I know there were some guys that this is not the sexiest positions and things like that, but these are definitely the most important positions, and I think some guys really stood out. It wasn't one of the best offensive line class, I think, down there. A couple of the big name guys or the big stars during the practices didn't play. So Ben, what do you think about the offensive line? Who stood out to you?
Yeah, so one guy that stood out to me was David Moore out of Grambling State. And first of all, the guy is just huge. He's 6'1", 350 pounds, and he's just a big guy. And he did have a little bit of trouble earlier in the beginning of practices, dealing with some guys that have speed on the edge. But I think he kind of improved through, and he was really a rep he had against Florida State's Marvin Wilson. He just kind of dominated that rep, and I think he's going to be a guy that might not get a lot of attention because of the lack of speed and the lack of foot quickness, but he's someone that might be able to develop and be able to eventually deal with those guys on the edge.
All right, Jacob.
So this is my favorite position to watch and to scale. I absolutely love the lines, and I remember one of my first articles I wrote for Inside the Hashes were 3 players that could improve their stock, and one of them, the first one that came to mind, was Dylan Raduns, the tackle from North Dakota State. You know, when it comes to these FCS guys, yeah, you can dominate that competition, but what's going to happen when you go against the elite guys? And what happened was he dominated them as well. I mean, he got named the Practice Player of the Week award for good reason. I don't know if he lost a single rep down in the practice in Mobile. He looked to me like a true first rounder. Another guy that I thought was just heading to above everyone also was Creed Humphrey, the center from Oklahoma. He's another guy that I'm not even sure lost a single rep, with just great strength, great anchor ability, looked great in his pass sets, looked great in the run game and the team drills. Like, both of those guys look like plug and play starters at the next level.
Definitely. Ray, what do you think?
I agree with what Jacob just said. I like Radus, he's like my favorite, probably the offensive line that we saw play this weekend. And in a lot of the practices, what I did see, I like Radus a lot. I think Robert Hainsey did himself a lot of good work, you know, playing some center, showing that he has some versatility. He actually played tackle for Notre Dame. But I think as an interior offensive lineman, that's where he's going to earn his bread and butter. And the fact that he showed people he can snap and do it pretty well, I think probably improves his draft stock a lot. And the one guy I love Spencer Brown from Northern Iowa. I think that he got pushed around a little bit of left tackle, guys a little bit quicker than I wanted, but I think he earned his spot as a right tackle, as a guy who should be drafted fairly early. So
the guy that names himself too tall, Spencer Brown from Northern Iowa. We got to interview him. Great guy. He is, as he says on his his Twitter, too tall. He's 6'8", I believe, 6'7". He's really tall guy. So, you know, it is expected for some of those speedier guys to get him a little bit because he's so tall. But a guy that really jumped out to me was a small school guy from Bridgewater, I believe it's called, the school. Quinn Menuez, if I say his last name correctly. I'm very bad with last names if you haven't noticed. But we call him Crop Top. He wasn't able to play in the game, but man, he not only was he showy and he had the dreadlocks and the crop top shirt, but he was beasting at practice for a small school guy, a school that not many people know about. He was really moving people, especially at the center position. And I think that's going to be one of those guys that, you know, get picked in like the 4th round, maybe even get boost his stock this Senior Bowl. But I think that he's one of those guys that you may look back on and be like, man, he really turned out to be a really good player.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Definitely. Let's move on to the last our defense now, and we're gonna go to the defensive line. Now, I think this was like the strongest position down there at Senior Bowl. If you don't agree with me, please correct me. But I think the defensive line was the strongest. Ray, what do you think about the defensive line going down there? There's plenty of names that I think you can talk about, but anybody stood up to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I love Carlos Bastion from Wake Forest. He's one of my favorite players, but I think that Ellerson Smith from Northern Iowa actually turned some heads this weekend for sure. Mm-hmm. I think the kid dominated every snap he played. I saw him playing. I only got to watch highlights of practice. I didn't get to watch a lot of the practicing, but I think that Ellerson Smith played really well. I think Quincy Roach from Miami showed people that he's going to be a nice edge rusher. Speed to kill him, man. The guy just is fast. He does everything at fast. And I like Dalen Hayes from Notre Dame. I think he's going to be like a very versatile type guy, a guy you can line up on the right or on the left. I think he's going to be more of a run type of a guy, but I think he's versatile enough to give you some pass rush. And I like Teron Jackson from Coastal Carolina. I think he's a weird guy. He's a little bit short, but he has long arms, like almost 35-inch arms. I think he's going to be a nice player for somebody at the next level. So,
all right, Jacob.
There is definitely a couple guys that really caught my attention on the defensive line. Ray hit the nail on the head. Boogie Basham looked absolutely incredible. I am a big fan of him. He is so technical, has extreme power in his hands. He's going to be a really good, versatile lineman in the future. Quincy Roche, absolutely astonishing off the edge. Wicked first step, great bend, really underrated hands. He had some really big highlights against Leatherwood. Other guys, he's a defensive tackle / edge rusher, but Osa Digizua from UCLA had a really nice spin move in practice, despite being around 280. Really mobile, agile guy that can play both interior and exterior. I was impressed by a lot of the defensive linemen in this class. I think a lot of guys held up. Hamilcar Rashid looked pretty good as well, and used in many different ways, both as a rusher and an off-ball linebacker. So I was thoroughly impressed by all those guys, especially Roche and Basham.
What about you, Ben?
One guy that I really liked throughout the week was Cameron Sample out of Tulane. He had a lot of speed and a lot of power coming off the line, especially in those one-on-one drills. Blockers really couldn't stay with him. He was really tough to contain. And seems like a really good pass rusher in the future. He's got a lot of good moves with his hands. He's quick. And I think he's got that aggression that is important for those edge rushers. And he was voted the best defensive lineman on the American team. So that's a nice nod for him. Another guy that I was impressed with was Marvin Wilson. He was a lot quicker than I thought he would be for a guy his size. I didn't really expect him to be a pass rusher as a run stopper, but he kind of proved during the Senior Bowl week that he can be that guy. One guy that stood out to me for a negative reason, unfortunately, was Patrick Jones out of Pittsburgh. He was really hyped up coming this week, and I was expecting big things. I've had him mocked in the first round for a little while, but I saw a stat today where he had the lowest win rate of any defensive lineman in attendance at the Senior Bowl at just 11%. He was not very balanced. He was getting knocked off his feet a lot. And while he does have some quickness, he doesn't really have a lot of bend that some of the other top pass rushers have in this draft. So it was really surprising to me to see that he didn't succeed as much as I thought he would.
I mean, the guy did have a sack in the game, though. So, but one of the guys,
There you go.
He got a sack. So, athleticism definitely helped him. Maybe he can need to work on his techniques a little bit. One of the guys that stood out to me that I think you guys didn't mention was Jonathan Cooper. And this is, me coming from a Michigan fan, talk about Ohio State fan. I think he really showed off from some of his skills as, especially in practice. I believe he had a sack, if I'm not mistaken. He had a half sack. So half sack, 1.5 TFL. So he looked really good to me. I think that, in a limited role that a lot of these defensive line are in, they're in a heavy rotation more than anybody else. I think that he stood out to me, and I think that he was around the quarterback a lot, getting pressure, had great bend out there. What do you guys think about him?
Like him? Well, I think he's a more of just a pass rushing specialist type of a guy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's a 3-down lineman. I think that he has some upside as a pass rusher, but I think he's a solid football player. The one thing I didn't think Marvin Wilson played well. I think he is early in the beginning of the year. That guy was probably going to be a first-round pick, but I don't think he's going to be anymore.
Yeah,
I think he's always struggled this year. So.
All right, let's move on to the next level of that defense, which is the linebackers. So let's talk about the linebackers, starting with Jacob. What linebacker stood out to you?
A guy that I was really excited to watch, Jabril Cox from LSU. He is quickly becoming one of my favorite linebackers in this class simply because he can cover. They say that linebackers are becoming a little bit more undervalued in today's defense, but a guy like him that can cover and can stay on the field no matter what defense you're in, I think is going to be a very, 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 very important part to a defense and I think he can go pretty high, higher than most people are predicting him right now. Because I'm seeing him going like early day 3, very late day 2. I think he can surprise some people with how high he can go.
All right. Awesome. So, Ben, what do you think?
I got Jacob stole one of my guys, Jabril Cox. I mean, I couldn't say enough about him, about his performance at the Senior Bowl. Not only can he cover, but he does have a lot of the tackling abilities too that you look for a gun level. So he was really impressive to me. And I mean, the linebackers were overall, I think, pretty decent, but there weren't too many guys to me that actually stood out above the rest that I was like, wow, he really improved his stock. He really did what he needed to do that week.
Mm-hmm. Ray?
I agree. I think Jabril Cox showed some upside. I actually like the Ohio State linebackers. I like Baron Browning, and Tuck Borland. I think they're good, solid players. I think they'll play at the next level. I think they're only 2-down linebackers, downhill type guys, which is not uncommon for linebackers anyway. But the one guy I actually also liked is I liked what's his name? Garrett Wallow from TCU. I think he's another guy who's pretty long, pretty solid athlete where he can maybe do some stuff in pass coverage, at least running backs and tight ends. I like him a little bit. I think he's like one of them guys you get like maybe early day 3, and I think he'll find himself on a spot on a roster, especially doing special teams and third down type of things, covering tight ends and stuff like that. So
definitely. 2 linebackers that I was impressed with, especially in the running game, particularly in the running game. Riley Cole, I think that he was really good against the run down there. I'm not 100% sure how he looked during the passing game, but running game, he was getting some tackles, stuffing them, getting some TFLs. Obviously, they were in South Alabama, stadium, so his name was always being highlighted every time he did make a tackle. But it was often and all the time, and I think that he was around the ball very, very often. Another guy that I liked a lot coming into this, and I think he did well, was KJ Brick. I think he did really well against the run as well. He got off his blocks a lot. I don't think he got swallowed up by a lot of blockers. So and then it enabled him to get to the running backs. What do you guys think about those 2 guys?
Good.
Okay, I think Britt looked a lot more agile than I thought he did on tape. So I think that he definitely helped himself a lot this week. Like I said, I had a little, not mobility, but just like it just stood out more to me watching him getting into lanes and position and such. And I definitely gonna give him another look after a pretty good week down there.
What do you think about that, Ben?
I would agree with Jacob. I mean, the agility, especially in today's game at the linebacker position. I mean, we talked about it earlier tonight, how a lot of the quarterbacks in the NFL are becoming so agile, so mobile that you need guys on that second level that are going to be able to get to the edge quickly and prevent those big runs. So I think it was a really good sign to see from him that he was showing some speed, some quickness, and some ability to play around a little bit.
Hey, Ray?
Yeah, I like KJ Britt. I think he's like a 2-down linebacker. I don't think that he's going to do much in pass coverage, but I think he's a guy who can run down guys from the backside, and he can do some nice things for you. So I like him too. I think most of the linebackers were the same. I don't think anybody that was there was like a 3-down linebacker, but I think they'll all play a role at the next level and get their feet on the board, especially if they're willing to play special teams. To me, that is the key for these linebackers. If you're willing to try to excel at special teams, you'll find yourself on a roster. If not, you'll be struggling to make a roster. So
yeah, and that's one of the positions that I think Riley Cole is going to really thrive at, just doing special teams. It's going to be one of his calling cards. But let's get to the last position. My favorite position, DBs. I know Ray don't really want to talk about this position, but we're going to go into it. The DBs of the position of the Senior Bowl. And I'm going to start with Ray with this one. Who stood out to you, Ray?
Before we do, though, what happened to Patty Fisher, man? Did he play?
Yes, he did. And he did not play well, Ray. He did not play well.
Stop.
All right, so to clarify, whoever don't know, Patty Fisher was one of the guys that I was very intrigued in seeing at the Senior Bowl. He did not do that well. He struggled down there. So unfortunately, I didn't have that back-to-back linebacker wish list guys that had since last year. But go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
Just so you guys know, Jerome loves unathletic linebackers, okay? Duh. Okay. Now, I like Benjamin St. Jude from Minnesota. I think he stood out, man. I think he showed that he is a good cover guy. He's nice, a physical player. I really like Benjamin St. Jude, probably my favorite guy. And I like Keith Taylor from Washington, too. I think if them two guys can run, fairly well in the 40s, you're going to see two guys who probably will be taken probably or fairly early day 2. So.
All right, Jacob.
So we're talking about both corners and safeties here?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm going to highlight a guy that I think everyone should be higher on. He's either my safety 1 or my safety 2 right now. It depends on it, but Richie Grant looked phenomenal down there in Mobile. He looks like a potential, not just starter, but all-pro caliber safety. I don't know if he's going to be that high, but just one of those long-term solutions at safety. He showed that he has the range to be a force at single high. He showed in Mobile all week, especially at the practices, that he can cover in man coverage and stick with a lot of either bigger guys or more shifty guys. And he, to me, just seems like a pretty complete package at safety and is what almost everyone looks for in a single high safety. Everyone wants that rangy guy that can play center field, and I don't think there's many guys in this draft that can do that besides Richie Grant. There's not many guys in most classes that can do that. So I think he showed that he's a potential special caliber player.
What do you think, Ben?
One of the guys that I've been really high on as of late and was impressed with this week was Ifeatu Melifonwu out of Syracuse. I mean, first of all, he is probably one of the biggest aggressive physical corners that are coming into the draft this year. And I was really impressed with his coverage skills and his ability to stay with a lot of receivers, both in the one-on-ones and in the larger drills. So he was someone who definitely stood out to me. Another guy who's definitely a smaller name coming from a smaller school, Christian Uphoff out of Illinois State. He is another guy that's he's 6'2", I think around 210, another big physical defensive back. But he proved this week that he does have coverage abilities and he's able to stay with some more quality wide receiver prospects. And one more guy that I was really, really interested in coming into this week was Hamza Nasir-Al-Din out of Florida State, because he, like so many other players at the Senior Bowl, did not get a lot of action in 2020. And I think there were some questions on what is this guy really like? I mean, we know that he's a big guy. We know he's a sure tackler, but I think this week he really showed that he's able to stay with running backs and tight ends in coverage. But I do see a little bit of problems with his speed if he's going to be matched up with some of the faster receivers.
Definitely. Yeah. So, like you said, with Melifonwu, I'm bad with names, as you see. But yeah. So even he actually surprised me. I got to see his brother at the combine a few years ago. Athletic freak, and he showed some of that with him, and I was concerned because his brother was so athletic, but it didn't translate to the football field. I feel like he's a little bit of the opposite, where he's a little bit better at the football and a little less athletic, and he's going to be still athletic, but he's not that athletic freak as his brother. So I think that he really showed, it really surprised me, because I was going into it thinking it's going to be a carbon copy of his brother, and he really showed something to me. Another guy I want to know what you guys feeling is a small school guy, Brian Mills. He was down there. He's one of the small school DBs down there. A lot of people didn't know who he was. He came down there. He had some good moments and he had some moments. I want to know what you guys think about it. Starting with you, Ben.
I mean, yeah, like you said, he was a little bit up and down throughout the week, and it was definitely good to see him get the Senior Bowl because he is from that smaller school and he doesn't necessarily have the chance to face up against a lot of the top talent that some of the other defensive backs around the country have. But he's a guy who I think could really boost his stock with a performance on a pro day. If he shows that he's in the top tier of athleticism with the speed, jumping ability, whatever it may be, I think he's a guy that will eventually get more attention and hopefully be looked at by some teams and get a chance.
What do you think, Ray?
I agree. I think he's definitely a plus athlete. I think he's a nice player. I think he'll get a shot at the next level. I didn't know we were doing safeties too, and I want to go with Jacob said. I love Richie Grant from Central Florida. I think the kid's a stud. So I think he's probably the best safety in the draft, to be honest with you. So
Great.
Awesome. And Jacob, what do you think?
I honestly don't think I can add any more than what has been said. I don't have enough firm of a grasp on him as a player to comment further besides what we said of him being a plus athlete. And yeah, he's definitely someone that I put on my list of players that to watch after seeing. I got a big list of guys that I every year write down who kind of catch my eye and make me say, "Hey, I got to watch their tape now."
Nice. Awesome. That's also really good to hear, and we really enjoyed being at the Senior Bowl this year, and we've been down there for the last 3 years as a company. So keep checking us out. We have more Senior Bowl information coming out, more analytic stuff to bring out to you guys about the Senior Bowl. But I want to direct our attention to the actual draft real quick. And, obviously there's the first and second round guys that everybody know about that, are being mocked mostly right now in the draft and things like that. But I want to know, is there a draft riser and or sleeper that you want to point out to everybody to kind of put a spotlight on somebody? I'm going to start with you, Jacob. Who do you think is a guy that you would like somebody like who don't really, analyze the draft? You think is going to rise eventually? That don't get the recognition or the name value.
Is it just Senior Bowl guys or anybody?
Anybody in the whole draft.
All right. A couple guys that I think fit this bill pretty well. I believe I'm going to stick with safety here. That Darius Washington from TCU is a guy that not a lot of people either know about or are aware of how good he is. He's one of those guys that coaches are going to love at just how intense he is. They might not love his size, but you look at some of the top safeties in the league, Buda Baker, not that tall, he's like 5'10". Honey Badger's like 5'9". He's someone that I think can be a real – he's either my safety 1 or safety 2. Obviously, Grant's up there. Murray's up there as well. But Washington's someone I think is a big-time sleeper. And I don't know if it's fair to call him a sleeper, but Quincy Roche from Miami, I don't think is being talked about enough. I mean, he was productive in college, has great physical traits. I don't know what's not to love. He's a guy that I think is probably going to crack my top 50 players or be right around there. And of course, there's a bunch of receivers that others are probably going to name.
Awesome, definitely. All right, Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a couple running backs. The first guy is probably a little more well-known, Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis. He's someone that this past season because he opted out to prepare for the draft. But for anyone who doesn't know Kenneth, the guy is an all-purpose monster. During the 2019 season when he was still at Memphis, he was probably one of the best pass catchers in the country, and he's still a completely balanced, powerful, and quick running back. So I think he's a guy who I have him right now as my run 3 for this year, but I think he's a guy that could be one of the best running backs to come out of this class. And then another guy, Larry Roundtree III out of Missouri. Wasn't too terribly impressed with him throughout the season. He had a couple of dud performances, but I think a lot than I thought he would be. He was quick, he was patient, and he is a bigger guy too, so he's going to be able to play a little bully ball down in the trenches.
Definitely. And can we before I get to Red, can we just maybe put Memphis into that RBU, conversation? Like they've been producing some running backs lately. They're looking great. Antonio Gibson, Tully Pollard, to name just a few of the guys. What you guys think about this Memphis school right now? They producing some running backs.
Yeah, you just said it yourself, man. They've really producing some running backs the last 4, 5, 6 years. They have. There's no lack of talent down there. Let's face it. So
for sure.
And I think in the next few years, if we see these running backs really be able to keep up some career longevity, I think that's really going to even push their status up even more.
I'm going to I agree with what y'all are saying. I'm going to tell you to halt that RBU talk just a little bit, because do we see how many top level backs in the league are coming from Bama? And we have Najee Harris this year. Like, I know we all want to hate on Bama, but let's just not forget how good of the talent that they're producing, especially at running back. I mean, Najee Harris my RB1 this year, and it just seems like they're just producing top level running backs year after year after year, and I don't think that's gonna stop.
We was having this discussion while we was at the Senior Bowl, me and the fellow coworkers, and I personally believe that you cannot pick Alabama in the U conversation for any position, because every position they have, you can say they're the U. Running back, wide receiver, quarterback, maybe not quarterback, but lineman, defensive lineman, linebackers, safeties. Like, you could kind of say that all about Alabama. So I can't really put them at the U because they're good all around. Like, when I think about the U team, it's usually like a team that produces at a specific position and been doing really well at it, specifically at that position. Alabama just good all around. What do you think, Ray?
And I don't hate
Place
any
is a
Alabama.
factory.
I don't hate any Alabama players as long as they're playing on Miami at the next level. That's all. So it's all good for me. No, I love Kadarius Toney. I know that people know who he is, but I really love him. I like him. I think he's a difference maker. I think he actually could be someone who sneaks into the end of the first round. It would not surprise me at all. I think he's a really good football player. I think he's a difference maker. I think that he can do a lot of things. I also like Trevon Grimes from Florida too. I think he's an underrated football player. He's more of a possession type guy, but I really like him. And on the defensive line, I have a hard time with his name. I like Marlon yeah. Tupalatu, a defensive tackle from USC. I really like him. I think he's a guy who could be nice and versatile. I think he could play in a 3-4 or a 4-3. I really like him. So I can't say his name, but I like him. Okay.
Hey man, these guys got tough names, and but hey guys, that's gonna do it for today. We really do appreciate everybody for tuning in, coming in with your comments and things like that. Also, we like to thank our special guests Ben and Jacob for coming on today. We really do appreciate you guys. Hopefully we can get you back on for our mock draft. We're gonna try to do once a month on here. So if you guys love looking at mock drafts and things like that, stay tuned to RPO podcast. Of course, we got my man Ray Roberts down here. We really do appreciate you being on here as always with your great analogies and your love for your Dolphins. So that's gonna do it for today, guys. Please make sure you check out our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all of those platforms that you listen to your podcast. We got a lot of player interviews that we talk to, a lot of players that we talk to with player interviews and things like that. And it really does support the company. So please make sure you check those out. We got a lot of draft prospects that we talk to throughout the years and throughout the month. So please check that out. Also check out our social media at Inside the Hatches. For Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, we have a lot of great content on there. And please make sure you go and check that out with all our Senior Bowl pictures and the interviews that we had down there. Also, make sure you go to our YouTube channel, which we are live right now on, and make sure you go in there, subscribe, like it. Ben Schwartz have some great draft analytics on there, and he analyzed a lot of the players that are in the draft right now. So make sure you go in there and check that out, subscribe to that so you don't miss any of those videos as well. And please check out our Twitter, because my man Jacob has some great Twitter debates on there and a lot of good blogs on there as well. So make sure you check that out, Inside the Hatches. And before we get off, I want all you guys to kind of like give your plugs for your Twitter. So Jacob, I'm gonna start with you.
All right, so you guys can follow me at Jacob Keppen, JACOBKEPPN. I'm always active on there. Always going to talk football, draft, whatever. Here to support work, and I'll be posting all articles and player rankings soon. Make sure you guys check out our most recent mock draft, special 2-round edition. Me and Ben went back and forth, stole each other's picks, and it was a really fun time. And we got some great content on the way.
All right, Ben.
Absolutely. And yeah, feel free to follow me at ITH Ben Schwartz. And like Jerome said, definitely make sure to check me out on YouTube. If you search Hashing Out the Draft into YouTube, my videos will come up. Make sure to check those out. Breaking down a lot of good players and a lot more good ones to come.
And as always, my man Ray, I know you got the phone book there. What you got, my man?
If you put on Twitter anything about Miami or Notre Dame, it will come to me and I will respond to it. If you don't, then I'm not going to bother with it. I'm not, I don't get involved in these Twitter wars that go on between these people, because remember that 20% we were talking about earlier, guys? They're usually the guys that respond to that stuff the most.
Yeah.
So.
Well, don't contact Ray then. Leave Ray alone. But no, guys, thank you guys also. And also, as always, check out our Inside the Hatches website, because it has all the content all on there. So you check it out, InsideTheHatches.com, where you find all gaming, blogs, player interviews, all of that, and more. Please check that out, InsideTheHatches.com as well. So I'm your humble host, Jerome Jones. We got Ben Schwartz, we got Jacob Kaplan, and Ray Roberts. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Have a good night.